Hi everybody and welcome back to the Celtic Way YouTube channel. My name is Ryan McGinlay and as you'll see we're in very different surroundings here this afternoon when we're recording this. We are in MPH's brand new showroom in Fife. All of the links will be in the description. If you're looking for plumbing, heating, kitchen or bathroom work, then please go and have a look. Very friendly staff, a nice new location. So yeah, please get into that and enjoy it if you do come. I'm joined this afternoon by Joe Donnelly and Tony Haggerty. Boys, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Excellent, Ryan.
And we're here to preview the Glasgow Derby between Celtic and Rangers. It's only a couple of days away as we are recording this. I just want to put a wee disclaimer before we start all the conversation. And this is before the Champions League draw and the transfer window shutting. So if you're looking for any updates on who we're going to play in the Champions League or any new signings that will take place in the Champions League and domestically, they will be not talked about in this. So we're just going to go as if it will be the same things that are happening on Sunday as they are just now. So it's a big game, 1st of September, Celtic versus Rangers in the Glasgow Derby. It was 3 wins and a draw last season against Rangers, including a very special cup final win, Adam Eder with the decisive goal. I'll just open the floor first of all. How are you guys feeling about this game a couple of days out until the big occasion at Celtic Park, Joe?
I'm quietly confident. I normally err on the side of pessimism, or certainly letting my nerves get the better of me ahead of these games. But it has been a fantastic start for Brendan Rodgers and his players, which kind of was rolled on from last year into pre-season, into the competitive fixtures in the League Cup so far. Celtic in a really good place. Having said that, Rangers with a good result at Hampden against Ross County last week, so you would think that they'd be confident going into this, but I can't foresee a situation where Celtic don't triumph on Sunday, not through overconfidence, just through how they're playing and that 100% deficit in the stadium. Celtic have so far proven that they are a real force to be reckoned with at Celtic Park with the 100%. And yeah, I say quietly confident just so as not to overextend, but in the best place I could be, I think.
Tony, do you agree with Joe? Are you confident for Sunday's game?
I think, yeah, the mood music is reading into this, that Celtic will win this football match. At this moment in time, I think we're at a moment in time where Celtic have better players, a better squad, and they are playing the better football at this minute. But like Joe, I never write off Rangers. They are your rivals, and I think just like Celtic will be intent in trying to register a statement win, I think it'd be a bigger statement win for Rangers if they come and turn you over in front of, without any fans. Celtic have proven adept at coping with that in both situations with their own fans and at Ibrox. I think Rangers have struggled with that, and nothing in the lead up to this suggests that they won't struggle again, but they are coming in the back of a 6-0 win over Ross County, the best preparation that you could have coming into a Celtic Rangers match in a derby. And sometimes you can read whatever, but sometimes the law of averages says it might be your day. Mm-hmm. But I think Rangers will have to bring their A game, their A+ game, and I'm not saying that Celtic just have to turn up. That's never the case in these games, but Celtic will know that this is a Rangers team coming, and they want, as much as Celtic want to make a statement, Rangers want to make a statement too. So it could be a real cracker, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, Celtic have had the better of Rangers in the past few years in the games between the two sides. I was going to ask this question at the end of the podcast, but I'm going to bring it forward. Do you think this game is title defining so early on in the season? I know that Celtic have only played 4 games in all competitions this campaign. Is this a good game to set down an early marker for the rest of the season, Joe? Would you agree with that?
It's a statement for either side, just kind of riffing off what Tony said. I don't think it's title defining. I don't think it ever is title defining. You might look back in hindsight at the Ibrox game last year, where Kyogo gets that goal and that's the first win. A remarkable win, to be quite honest, again with that crowd deficit against you, Celtic at Ibrox, and a fantastic goal. I've said this before, that goal of Kyogo's, having had a season ticket at Celtic since 97, 98 when Celtic stopped Rangers, 10 bid. I think that the 2 Kyogo goals last season are up there with the best that I've seen. Had the pleasure of seeing Henrik Larsson's chip in the 6-2 game and many others over the years. I think that was a brilliant victory. It set a tone at a time when Celtic had come off the back of a 0-0 draw. I'm sure we'll discuss this at some point against St Johnstone, which was disappointing at the time. Carl McGregor addressed that at his press conference recently about how the fans were getting a little bit agitated at that point so early in the season. But I don't think it will define the title. It could be a defining moment in what ultimately defines the title. But I mean, it's far too early for me to say either way.
Yeah, just going back to this time last year, Celtic had just drawn at home to St Johnstone. I remember in particular, Matt O'Reilly had 3 or 4 massive chances in that game. He did get his shooting boots on by the end of the season, but in that game he missed 2 or 3 massive chances. They should have beat, I think St Johnstone were the bottom side at that point in time. I think it was Stephen McLean that was still in charge, but they didn't manage to get a positive result. You know, a draw at home was a terrible result for Celtic, especially given the dominance that they had in possession. Just fast forward a year, Tony, look at where Celtic are. They've only conceded 1 goal in all competitions this year. That was a wonder header from the Hibs striker. Kasper Schmeichel's hardly had a save to make. People are talking about his distribution more than his actual saving ability. Just look at that in a year. From the St Johnstone game to now, Celtic aren't conceding any goals. They're scoring lots of goals, albeit their strikers aren't scoring. It seems everywhere else is. The mood music has changed, and it's changed for the better.
Yeah, what put on record that I think I was in a very small minority that said Celtic would go to
The smallest of minorities, especially after that
of
video.
one.
Yeah.
I think you'll find. I think people were predicting lots of a handsome Rangers victory, and even when they saw the team news that day, and Lagerbielke and Scales were the central defensive pair. Going back to Joe's, one of the best strikes I've seen a Celtic Rangers match as well. But yeah, I mean, it just shows you that how far Celtic have come in a year under Rodgers, because Rodgers was still working his magic on the team. There was still that, suspicion's a strong word, but there was still that lingering suspicion of Rodgers and coming back and still winning over the fans. You know, so he's done that. That's been put to bed now. The style of football they're playing, everybody's on board with that. They're loving it. But as far as you say, in terms of season, it's never season defining. It's just the next game. And famous manager once said, you just get the same 3 points for beating Rangers as you do for beating Hibs the week before or whoever you played the week before. So you can't look at that in terms of that's the season wrapped up. You know, lots of bookmakers like to troll people and say that's the league finished, and you'll probably find that after Sunday if Celtic win with certain people. But that's never my school of thought. You have to work hard to win these football matches, and 5 points at this stage in the season would be a healthy lead to have over Rangers, and I think that's Celtic's goal, to eke out that 5 point gap and then move on from there. But nothing's more important than just winning the game. A byproduct of that is that you move 5 points ahead of your rivals, and it's a healthy lead to have at this early in the season. But again, stressing, you're just starting September. Nothing's won in September. It never has been. It never will be. You still have 3 derbies to go, and I think whatever happens after Sunday, I think Rangers will see it as a gauge of where they are and what they need to do to try and change the narrative around Glasgow derbies at this moment in time.
Yeah, slightly tongue-in-cheek, Joe, but could it be seen as like a moral victory as well, this one, if it was to happen? I've been talking a lot recently on the Celtic Way morning briefings about Celtic controlling the narrative early on in games and influencing with early goals. You expect Celtic to come out and do the same, don't you, and start really, really quickly. I was speaking to Graham Souness yesterday, who said that Celtic start on fire in every single game. You know what's coming. It's all about whether you can stop it. Thus far, Kilmarnock, Hibs twice and St Mirren, they've not been able to stop it. Can you see Rangers stopping that if Celtic come out and really feed off the crowd, feed off the 60,000 fans that are at Celtic Park, if they do start with that intensity and that bite?
Yeah, it's very difficult to play against, isn't it? I think it's, and this is cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. The opening 15 minutes is always huge in these games. Kind of going back to what Tony said about Brendan Rodgers coming back in and restoring that faith. You know, the manager said towards the end of last year that this was him back to zero after a successful campaign where we won the traditional league and cup double. There is a real kind of feel-good factor amongst the fans and the manager at the moment that definitely wasn't there this time last year through the division that the manager had kind of created through the nature in which he left in 2019. That's back to as good as it's ever been, to be quite honest. I feel like there's that kind of connection and vibrance in the crowd that I remember in 2016, 17 and 18. and that real kind of unity there. If you combine that, you know, the crowd on song, again, the 100% deficit, and the fierce, aggressive attacking football that we've seen so much of from Celtic so far this season, with players like Kuhn really pushing the game who weren't doing so. You know, he obviously came in January. As much as he is now, James Forrest as well, if he starts or if he's involved. He wasn't involved this time last year either. And having Kyogo back fit, having Adamida in the door, having Paulo Bernardo there, okay, it's a big hit losing Matt O'Reilly. Again, we're speaking now before the end of the window. That's kind of to be confirmed as we speak just now. But I think that there's, that buoyancy among the crowd, that confidence the manager is exuding on the touchline, in press conferences, the captain the same, you know, talking about top being cheap. It's where you prove it on the pitch. And I think that if Celtic turn up and continue the kind of fine vein of form that they've had in recent weeks, then I mean, unplayable maybe. Maybe not. Rangers have got a real point to prove, but very difficult to play against.
I guess one of the main positives going into this Glasgow Derby is that Celtic have got a manager who seems to have the opposition's number in Rangers and Philippe Clement. Brendan Rodgers knows this derby inside out. He was there the first time. He had a very successful record, some really memorable games. The 2-5-1 game spring to mind immediately. The 5-0 game as well at Celtic Park when they won the league. He's came back. His record's good at the moment as well. I think it's only 1 draw and 3 wins. I think that's right. It's a very positive record regardless of what it is.
4 wins including the cup.
4 wins. I'm doing him a disservice here. Tony, do you think that Brendan Rodgers has Philippe Clement's number here with this? You know, I think a lot of Rangers fans will be wanting Clement to break that duck in the Glasgow Derby. He's not managed to get it yet, although they did celebrate like it was a win. In the 3-each game, he'll be looking for a win. He has came out and said that he will be pushing for a win and pushing to get at Celtic early doors. Do you believe that Brendan Rodgers and the elite level manager that he is, he does have Philippe Clement and Rangers' number at this moment in time?
Well, he said every manager's number up to
He did
this
mention
point,
that as
right?
well, yeah.
So he's lost 1. I mean, that record has to go at some point. I'm not saying it's going to go on Sunday, but I'll say this, and it's a hill I'm willing to die on. The biggest asset Celtic have at this moment in time at the football club's their manager. He's elite level for a reason, because he takes all the pressure in this game, absorbs it, and he lets the players go out and just express themselves. It's a great quality to have. It's all on him, but he understands the fans' expectations. He's one himself. He is the best representative that you could have in that technical area, because he's as shrewd as anything. Tactically, he's good, and he'll send the team, whatever team he sends out there. Just mentioned a couple of players there. Kyogo may be coming back, Adamida. Doesn't really matter if you pair him any one of those two. The Celtic supporters are happy. Whoever starts up front, probably Kyogo because he had a great derby record. But, you know, that's all subjective and about personal choice. But the manager will know. And you know why he'll know? Because he places a lot of stock and faith in watching him at training. He always tells you, he signposts things, and he'll tell you in the lead up to the game. And the players go out there in the greatest frame of mind. In all the derbies that Brendan Rodgers has managed, with the exception of the one they've lost, there's been no pressure on those players. It hasn't manifested itself at any shape or any stage or at any time on the park. Rangers supporters will look at that and think, how could our manager not instill the same? He might do it on Sunday. It's a big one for both. For that reason, Brendan Rodgers trying to keep that record going. This would be Philippe Clement's biggest coup to date and biggest feather in his cap if he can bring this Rangers team to Celtic Park and all that it entails with no fans and winning. But you're up against a shrewd tactician, and as I say, he's elite level for a reason. And it's not just about football results. I keep banging on about that. It's about the things he does, the subtle things, the way he'll G up these players, the way the fans will go into this in an absolute frenzy, create that noise, and try and win the game in the first 20 minutes, like Graham Soon has alluded to. We've sat at Easter Road and we've sat at St Mirren Park, and in 20 minutes we've said the game's finished. Yep. Right? And it's no slight on the opposition. It's just the way this Celtic team are playing at the minute, getting ahead, getting ahead early.
Yeah.
And so
controlling the narrative.
Correct, controlling the narrative. And again, you will the Celtic fans will expect the same. And Rangers have to expect an onslaught. in the opening 20, and as Joe says, it's probably the most important period of the game, because that's when you can lay down your marker, and that's where you'll see the way Brendan Rodgers has set his team out to play.
Joe, the fans are going to be massive in this game. 60,000 fans, no Rangers fans. There'll be no Celtic fans in the reverse fixture where that's getting played. We're not so sure at this point in time. I think that's one of the reasons why there won't be any fans at the return game or the reverse fixture. How big are those supporters going to be? It's probably going to be the last one of its kind at Celtic Park, where there's no representation from the opposition's supporters. How big are they going to be in this? Are they going to be that cliched term, the 12-man?
I think it's going to be massive, isn't it? You know what Celtic Park is like when it's rocking in those fixtures. Not really playing devil's advocate to the point about, you know, when a game feels like it's finished early doors, but to flip that on its head, I mean, the last game at Ibrox where Celtic are 2-0 up and coasting, and then controversial decision, in my opinion, gets Rangers back into the game, and then all of a sudden you've got a real blockbuster fixture on a 3-each draw, which for me is underpinned by the fact that there's that 100% crowd deficit. I, like many Celtic fans, I wanted Rangers fans back in the allocation for this one. It's a shame that it couldn't happen. It now is the case. We need to deal with it. We need to deal with as you say, the reverse fixture at Ibrox. I know, Tony, that you've been to Ibrox in the media area in the main stand where there's been no Celtic fans. Seeing Celtic obviously getting the victory, which is it's a really difficult thing to do. My experience of it when I worked at club media at Celtic was when there was the cut allocation, there was 700 fans in that corner. Celtic actually got beat 2-0 on the day, which was obviously disappointing from a Celtic supporter's perspective, but it showed me what the impact that kind of disparity in allocation can have, because even though there was 700 fans there with Rangers winning that game, the home crowd had so much to sing about. Celtic fans were singing sporadically, but always drowned out. And I was sitting in the main stand with the press surrounded by Rangers fans as well. And even when the Celtic fans were singing in that 700 cut allocation, I couldn't hear them. So to think what that's like at pitch level, you know, it's hard to explain how difficult it was to hear them. The players must be really struggling in that situation. For a Celtic team to go and win with no fans in that stadium, it's a remarkable achievement. On Sunday, obviously Rangers face that in reverse. They've not managed to get a result with that negative. Or with the 100% deficit against them. So it'll be massive. What Rangers need to do in that opening spell is to put Celtic on the back foot. Leading up to this, in terms of form, in terms of what we've seen so far from this aggressive, high-pressing Brendan Rodgers team that isn't afraid to be patient. It's a very different team from Ange Postecoglou's team. A full year of Brendan Rodgers being there. It's not all about we never stop. It's about being smart with the ball. Yeah. It's about those long vertical passes with the triangles. I'm no analysis man myself, but you are seeing those triangles that are going much deeper into the opponent's half, pinning the opposition in. I think it'll be a really difficult afternoon for Philippe Clement. You know, and it's sitting here on the Celtic Way podcast. I hope that that's the case, of course.
Yeah, we spoke about all the hypotheticals coming into this game. Let's talk about the players that are going to be on the pitch that will decide the game, because it's as much as it's all about the manager and the opposition manager as well, it's all about those 22 men on the pitch. We'll see if it lasts for the 22 men for the 90 minutes. We know what these derbies are like after all. We're going to talk about the key battles in the game. I think the one key battle that that immediately springs to mind is Dyson Maeda versus James Tavernier. That has been a battle that Maeda has won more times than not. I can't really think of a time in which Tavernier has been able to deal with Dyson Maeda's press and his forcefulness and the press and the movement and his tempo and speed. Is that the big battleground on that right back left wing position, Tony?
Do you know the irony about all of this is that Tavernier's got a decent scoring record. And he scored that couple of free kicks.
Fans as well. There's a couple of free kicks he scored.
And it's counted for nothing.
I know.
And so, but he has it in his locker. Mm-hmm. But he must have sleepless nights when he's thinking about Dyson Maeda. He really does. I mean, Dyson Maeda gives him that old football saying, twisted blood, doesn't he? And you just and Tavernier is a decent enough footballer, but you're measured. Your greatness or your legacy is measured in these games. And sadly for Rangers fans, Tavernier has come up second best in his Celtic matches, and particularly against Dyson Maeda. He must hate the sight of him Dyson Maida was rub his hands in glee and think, okay, I'm going to have another go. But I've said to you before, and Dyson Maida isn't all that, is he? Because he can have the Forrest Gump days, you know, the box of chocolates days where you don't know what you're getting with Dyson Maida. He can be absolutely sensational. World beater, panel beater, you name it, he can do the whole lot, right? So,
but he's allowed to because
he's allowed to because he's a cult hero at Celtic, and everybody says it's Dyson. They just sugarcoat it, Dyson Maida.
But
what they do know is he'll give Tavernier a torrid time. See, even if it's not through skill, it'll just be through sheer industry, effort, graft, and he'll nullify him. You know, and that's the only situation which threatening when Tavernier plonks that ball down 25 yards, 30 yards for goal. Castles might have a safety making Sunday, you better believe it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And he'll probably come from Tavernier.
Yeah, Tavernier.
Because if you're Rangers and you're Clermont, you're saying, get free kicks in and around the area. Right? I mean, it's because they can be gold in this guy's boots. You can't
take... The only goal we've conceded this season so far has come from a very similar kind of situation.
You cannot take away from the fact that the guy hits a brilliant dead ball and he takes a wonderful penalty. And you're not telling me that there's not going to be a penalty on Sunday. For who knows?
These things happen.
For who? I don't know. I wouldn't hazard a guess, but
you wouldn't bet against it. Is what you're saying about
you know. So
the game,
and all saying people, you know, Celtic fans kind of sneer about Tavernier and stuff like that, but he's still a player that needs to be watched because he's got an unerring ability to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yep, he's a goal scorer as well.
And he can be a potent attacking weapon for Rangers if he's not watched. Thankfully, you have a player in Dyson Maida who you were talking about the manager having his number. He seems to have his number. But I get back to, no, if you believe in the law of averages, at some point it has to flip. We're on the Celtic way. We don't want it to flip, obviously, and we hope that it reverts to type.
You look at the goal that Nicholas Kuhn scored against Hibs in the recent League Cup victory. That all came down to a mistake made by the Hibs fullback, and it was a pass made under pressure from Dyson Maida. That's got to be an avenue for Celtic to look at and exploit, because Tavernier is prone to errors. You've seen that at Ibrox when he kicked the ball without looking at it. It hit off Dyson Maida. It's a bit of a freak goal, but you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the lottery. He's that sort of player. You know what you're going to get. I know Tony says you can't get 110%, but if there was
100, always 100.
If there was somebody to defy that,
big football bugbear of mine. You only give
100%. Dyson Maida, he's going to be one of the main men for Celtic on Sunday, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean he unsettles that back line so well. And I think that and it's that. I mean, you used the word industry. I think that's a really good way to describe someone like Dyson Maida. The goal that he scores against Ibrox against James Tavernier, who you're watching in the highlights back, he's calling for Cam. He's saying, "I've got it," and then clearly at the end up he doesn't. It is a lot of luck to get that deflection of the ball, but it's I can't criticise Dyson Maida for that, because he deserves, if any player deserves that kind of luck, it's him for forcing that kind of goal. On the flip side, the kind of conundrum of Dyson Maida for me is that he gets into positions that only he can because of that explosive burst of pace. He gets right in, keeps himself onside, right in behind that defensive line, and then occasionally can't see it through. Only he can get onto a long ball like that behind the defenders. And then
there was an example of that against Hibs.
Talking about that goal, if ever the goal was microcosmic of two players' careers, it's that freak goal at Ibrox, isn't it? Yeah. And the way the narrative is run since those two have come up against each other, that to me is a very defining moment in both players' respective derby careers, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I picked out another battleground area, and it's on the opposite side, actually, because I think Celtic will get a lot of joy from Rangers as fullbacks. These are the two areas that I've picked out in particular. Rangers' recent signing from Cyprus, Limassol, I think it's Aris Limassol, was Yefti, the Brazilian left back. He will be coming up against Nicholas Kuhn at the weekend, who a lot of people would say is probably Celtic's informed player, out with Rio Hatate at this point in time. Maybe even Liam Scales and Greg Taylor would have something to say about that too. It's always good to have so many informed players. But Nicholas Kuhn, 6 goal contributions in 4 games. He loves going one-on-one versus his opposing fullback. Not a single fullback has been able to deal with his pressure, his speed and his directness. Do you think that could be an area, Tony, where Celtic can really exploit? Because Yefti loves a foul. We've seen it against Dinamo Kiev with the persistent fouling. We know it was a second yellow. It was a dubious second yellow. It was persistent fouling. You want Yefti to be brought into that world, to be brought into Kuhn's world and make those fouls and make those challenges and commit.
That's got to be the instruction from Brendan Rodgers. Go
And he will tell him to do that. That's
go
the
at your
thing.
man
Brendan
if
Rodgers
he's
will
got
look
a
at weakness.
suspect temperament at all. And I felt sorry for Yefty in the sense that he got yellow carded for something that was, as you say, a bit dubious, but it wasn't for that. He brought himself to the referee's attention with the first one, booking, and then he's won 1, 2, 3, and then the last one was the elbow or not, whatever way you want to look at it, and the ref's just had enough. And I actually blame Clement for that. He should have noticed that and he should have took him off because there was £5 million at stake in that game. But if ever there's a suspected weakness there, Nicholas Kuhn's a man to try and take advantage of that and take control of that situation. And if I'm Celtic and I'm taking centre, I'm switching it to Kuhn, have a run at him straight away from the off, see what's happening. And because in the past, I'll go all Celtic reference on you now, you know, I would stand in the jungle and you would watch David Cooper, wonderful footballer, brilliant footballer for Rangers, one of the best actually, and scored the best goal you'll ever see against Celtic from now until Doomsday in Drybrook Cup 79. Watch it, go on YouTube, it's tremendous. And you'd always get guys say, Cooper's not on it today because his first touch was terrible, or if his first touch was brilliant, pull the ball out there, take it on it, say, oh no, Cooper's on it, right? And so that's the
Samaras effect.
If you're bringing it up to date with you, Samaras effect then basically, yeah. But it was the same, you know, back then. So I think any winger, early touch of the ball, go at your full-back, and if Yefty is, as you say, suspect, he might have the game of his life. Sometimes these games throw up unlikely heroes. You go to Heog as a classic example of that, with the overhead kick. Celtic Park, and you're thinking, where'd that come from? You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So Yefty might have a stormer, or he might, as you say, have a Kiev type game. And if he does, then Celtic are exploiting. Kuhn's exploiting that because you say 6 goal contributions, 4 games. He's a potent weapon, and he is now appearing like the player you thought he'd sign, Nicholas Kuhn.
Yeah, I mean, pardon the pun, but he's got his bite back after that dental surgery. It seems as if he's really on it. Do you agree with that in the battleground area in terms of getting Yefty to do the defensive work that maybe isn't something that he likes to do, or he will do it, but it's not his forte. He'd prefer going forward. I have seen him put in good balls into the box. He definitely has more of an attacking player, much like James Tavernier. You've got to force him into doing things that he doesn't want to do, the part of the side of the game that he maybe doesn't excel at. And Nicholas Kuhn, the way he excels at the game, he is good defensively as well. He does press, but he's better when he's one-on-one versus the opposition player.
I think so, and I think that, like you say, when Nicholas Kuhn came in, he obviously had that dental surgery a month before. He lost a lot of weight.
9 kilos, I think he was.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. And he promised that there was the best was yet to come. And, you know, to paraphrase the captain, talk is cheap, but so far Nicholas Kuhn has shown that, he's improving as a player. His stats so far are really good. He had that incredible first half pre-season, non-competitive game against Manchester City, but that was a tone setter which he's carried into the competitive football. I've admittedly not seen too much of Jeffy so far. I've watched the Kiev game. I do think he was hard done by for the one that got him sent off. He did get himself, and not just in that instance, but over the course of the game, off the ground well. I'm not sure if he's an aerial threat that Celtic might need to keep an eye on for set pieces, because that's obviously been something that's cost Celtic in the past in these games. The game at Christmas time, James Tavernier gets the goal, long ball into the box that you'd think will keep Kasper Schmeichel on his toes. But thinking about Nicholas Kuhn, for me, Hefty's a little bit of an unknown entity, just in the sense of I haven't seen that much of him so far this year. But Nicholas Kuhn, if the best is yet to come, if he was promising this is what he wants to prove himself this season, this is his, the first 6 months or the first 4 months was an introduction to him. He wants to play in these games. So this is where he could, he's been great so far. We've seen his numbers going up, but this is where he could really prove himself. He could have a quiet game, but he could have a great game. And that's what he'll be wanting to do. And I think that it's exciting to think what he could produce in this game.
I think he's on the precipice, isn't he, of being that Celtic hero. You've got to do it against Rangers if you are to make that leap into being a hero amongst the support and everybody following the club. Is that what he's got to do? He's got to turn up in the Glasgow Derby?
That's your stage, that's your platform. Yeah.
The manager
will send those 11 players out, as I alluded to earlier, in the best possible frame of mind and say, you got that wee clip the other week, Paradise is for us. It'll be a similar thing. He'll be saying to the players, this is your stage, this is
definitely
your platform.
A confidence player as well. He wants that arm around him.
Go and do it. Go and do what comes natural to you. Go and do what we've spoken about all week in training. go and do the stuff that we're focused on, in particular with specialist players, i.e. Kuhn, Kyogo, Daizen Maeda, Hatate, McGregor, these kind of guys, to say, they'll be well drilled, and Kuhn is, as you say, on the precipice now. He's a brilliant derby performance away from people saying, you've arrived.
The breakout's coming,
Mr. Dembele style.
Yeah, you've arrived, so...
He scored goals, he made assists, but now let's do it on the big stage.
This is where it matters, and I think it's a big one for Kuhn on Sunday.
Just to begin
I believe.
Yeah, just to begin to wrap things up, who do you reckon are going to be the key players? We've obviously spoke about Kuhn, we've spoke about Daizen Maeda as well. Who is your go-to player? Who will be the difference between these two sides? I'll start off with you, Joe. Who's going to be the difference maker on Saturday if they win?
For me, if Kuhn starts, it's Kuhn's game. Because I also think that a big performance here will set the tone for the Champions League football, which he's been speaking about openly, about wanting to push himself at the highest level. As you say, with that unity with the fans, if it can improve things. If Adam Idah has, I don't think he'll start the game. I think that Kyogo will start, assuming that he's fully fit and ready to go. I think that Adam Idah will come off the bench though, and I think that it could be massive for him in terms of he's maybe not had as prolific a start as some fans would have liked, just given that he's come into the team with a lot of pressure riding on his shoulders. Big business for Celtic. He didn't have a pre-season. Yeah, no, it's no criticism of the player, but I think he'll want to announce himself with getting himself off the mark. Those would be the two players for me, and I think, assuming that it is Kyogo that starts the game, he could be the difference maker, an early goal for Celtic.
Tony, who do you think?
3 players for me. Cameron Carter-Vickers needs to up his game, because he's coming up against an informed Dessers. Much maligned.
He's physical.
Yeah, much maligned. Dessers as well. But he's beginning to show he's got a bit about him. I've always kind of liked him. Maybe the Rangers fans would complain that he's a non-scoring centre-forward, but he's starting
at the moment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's starting to score now, so he'll have to be watched. And we've spoken about on the pod recently about Cameron Carter-Vickers doing uncharacteristic things. Just revert to type. Be characteristic. Do exactly what it says in the tin and defend.
Basically do what Scales has been doing.
Right, yes. Well, correct. He's been the better of the two since the start of the season. Nobody can deny that. But I think this is when he comes alive. So, and Callum McGregor, always your metronome, right? And he's up against a new challenge now. Lots of Rangers fans bigging up Conor Barron. Callum McGregor's counted them in and counted them out. Another new challenge. Gave the talk his cheap stuff the other day as well when he said that. So, but he is your go-to man. He's so reliable in these fixtures, and he's won that many that it just becomes second nature to him at times. But Rangers' best player of the season so far, and Rangers fans correct me if I'm wrong on it, they seem to like Conor Barron, what he brings, and so we'll see a new test, something different thrown Callum McGregor's way. He's risen to every test that he's had. Don't see any reason why he can't rise to the next one. Manager will prime them for that. And Rio Hatate. The man can spot passes. My bugbear with Hatate, and we've spoken about it a lot, is his distribution. But since the manager got a hold of him, his distribution has been on point. He has taken risks and stuff, but you were talking about playing through lines and stuff, Joe, with those long intricate, but he's got an eye for a pass, he's got an eye for a goal as well, and he'll be pivotal on Sunday. No, he'll be very important. And also, if Paulo Bernardo plays as a kind of sitter, then McGregor and Hatate will have a licence to roam. You saw where they roamed in Paisley. 2 of them get a sight of goal and it finished up in the bottom corner of the net both times. So they can be deadly themselves, but they'll orchestrate and pull a lot of strings in midfield. But they're up against a team who are coming with a point to prove. And at Celtic, you've just got to peak, and then peak again, and peak again, and peak 38 times. And only certain players can handle that over the course of a league season. Callum McGregor, it's never been a bother to him. He'll keep peaking, he'll keep rising to these challenges. But that's my 3 out with Joe's, who I believe will have a big bearing in it as well. But
not that I ever think Callum McGregor ever holds back, but he doesn't have the international break to worry about.
He
gets everything out, and he gets a fortnight holiday or a week holiday.
And he'll relish that. He'll be relishing the fact that after this game, which Joe says he'll just put his heart and soul into, he's got 2 weeks off, and he'll be like, "You're a dancer," and the manager will say to him, "Leave it out there, leave everything out there, I mean, most players do, but sometimes in a game of this magnitude, it can pass certain players by.
Yeah. Last couple of wee points. Team predictions for the game. Obviously, this is before Celtic's press conference, so we don't know if there's any new injuries. So we're going as is, or as is the case on Thursday afternoon. This is before Brendan Rodgers speaks to the media. I think this one is pretty straightforward. I could go and ask you individually what you think the team will be, but I think we'll all be kind of united in what we think the team will be. Kasper Schmeichel in goals, no deliberation there whatsoever.
I think, long story short, it'll be the same team that started against Viessmann, won't it?
Yeah. That's an easier way to put it, yeah. The exact same team. Apart
because
from maybe,
even couching it with the fact that there might be new signings, they will not start.
Kuhn for Forest, I would say, probably on right wing.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, that would be Kasper Schmeichel in goals, a back four of Greg Taylor, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Liam Scales and Alistair Johnston, who I think will have a massive role to play in this game, both defensively and in the playmaking areas. A midfield three of the skipper, Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate and Paulo Bernardo. The two of them will probably interchange in deep roles and going forward. That's the thing about this midfield, it's so fluid. They all do different jobs in different roles in different parts of the game. And then a front three of, well, there will be actually a couple of changes because Kyogo will probably start the game, along with Daizen Maeda on the left and Nicholas Kuhn on the right. Would you agree with that? That's a pretty strong team, isn't it? And I think it picks itself as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't foresee, assuming that everyone's fit, I can't foresee there being anything different there. I think with just one more thing on Hatate, I think that one thing the manager spoke about a lot last season, towards the end of the season, was his creative players not being caught in possession, not losing the ball, and putting more stress than needed on Celtic in a defensive third. For Hatate, that has sometimes been an issue where he does put needless pressure on the defence, and with Rangers moving so quickly as they're looking at counter Celtic, which I think they will, that will be massive as well.
He's taken that on board because it was that curt reply when he was asked to quit. He gives the ball away too much.
Yep.
And Brendan Rodgers is
quite blunt when he said that as
very
well.
rarely throws his players under the bus.
Yep.
But he was driving that point home
Yep.
that talent's not enough to play in my team. You have to be able to do something more with that talent.
Yeah.
And that something more is don't give the ball away and don't put your own team under pressure. And he's listened. He's clearly listened, and he's not alone in listening to what the way the manager wants to set out style and play. And I think that's what's been noticeable, which is why there has been that massive seismic change to the style that you were talking about last season to now.
Yeah, everybody's on the same boat. Everybody's all singing from the same hymn sheet as well, and it seems to be good. And that on that front. Last question.
I thought you would have said singing from the same spreadsheet the other day.
nearly. That would have been a nearly one. Score predictions. I don't know if you are in the predictions business or in the jinxing business, maybe potentially. Joe, what do you think the score is going to be on Sunday afternoon? We'll still get lots of news to talk about before the game actually kicks off on Sunday. But as we're speaking on Thursday afternoon, what do you think the score will be on Sunday? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I think it'll be 2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic. Tony?
3-1 Celtic.
3-1 Celtic. I'm going to go 2-0 Celtic. That's the end of the Glasgow Derby preview show. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you to Joe and Tony for being on this special podcast this afternoon. Check out MPH Group, all their plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom work. Check out their showroom. All the links will be in the description for everything that you need. And yeah, fingers crossed Celtic get the result that they want and crave at the weekend on Sunday afternoon. Cheers guys.